All right, thanks very much for that feedback. And here we're going to jump in here today, like I mentioned, talk a little bit about the material list and workflows, and how can you make the software work a little bit better for you. So I'm going to reference here as we start out. Back in actually, I think it was in our initial webinar series that we did back in December. We spent a session talking about a different approach to workflow that hopefully all of you who are here know about, but maybe you don't. And I'm just going to touch on it briefly today. And I'm even as I say that, here in the chat menu or the chat option here, I'm going to put a link to this previous webinar that you could watch at a later time if you like. Just chatted that in there. So you could grab that, and would go more into more detail. But the concept here really is being able to take the plan tab like I'm doing here, and I'm going to drag it out and set it to the side. And ideally, this would be like on a separate screen. But with this option, I can do things like measure out and drive from the material list. So I can have this on one screen, have my drawing on another screen. And so, for example, I could open up my main floor pack, and let's say I wanted to draw my mud sill. So I could just come in here, pick my product, and then without having to do anything else, I'll just click measure. And I'm going to go over here to the screen where I need to take that information off, find that lineal footage. So I'm just going to trace it around. And then when I'm done, that is automatically linked back to my list. It's tied in here. Here's my mud sills tied to the 104 linear feet that I just collected. And there's much more there as far as measure commands, link commands, being able to do that with wall assemblies, just a lot of efficiencies and things that can be saved in using that approach. Now, it's not the only approach. We're certainly not saying that, and it's going to be a mix of things. But if you aren't using that yet in your approach to doing your takeoffs within the pre-built ML software, you can definitely leverage that and get further with it. But having said that, so knowing that you can launch out and pull back in and things like that from the plan tab right into your material list, what that starts to open up then is okay, let's actually organize our material list over here. So I'm in the project tab in the material list, and we've got all of our packs. Organizing this in such a way that it fits your workflow, so that this material list then can become truly a driver, a checklist, a guide, directions to how to work through a takeoff. So when it comes to your template file, how you have your template files set up, that's going to come down to things like, are your packs named the way that you like them? And if they're not, then change that. You can right click on a pack, you can rename the pack. And so a lot of things that I'm going to talk about here today would be things that you would want to do not at the job level, things that you would want to do in your template file, so that as you step into a project, all this stuff is just set up for you. So for example, you have your packs, and are they labeled first floor, second floor, third floor? Are they labeled main floor? How is it they need to be named? And which packs do you need to have on a regular basis? And then I'll mention here, just along with that, is that keep in mind that you might say, oh, exterior decks, we only do that, 25% of the jobs, or 10% of the jobs, or 80% of the jobs. It's like, we don't need it all the time. And so that's fine. So you could have two approaches to that. One, you could always have to come up here to add pack and actually add in an exterior deck pack every time that you need it. That's an okay approach, but also keep in mind that you could actually just have the pack in here. And if there's nothing in the pack, now this exterior deck happens to have something in it, but if you didn't have anything in the exterior deck pack, then just remember that it's not going to report on your list. So there's really no harm, no foul by having an extra pack in your list that you just don't actually end up using on a particular job. So if it saves you time and effort by just already having it loaded in, then go ahead and do that. Also keep in mind that you can drag and drop these packs into any order that you like. So again, this can serve as a flow from top to the bottom of how do I approach my jobs, how do I approach my my takeoff. So packs first, you can rename them and everything. From there then, though, is what about the contents of a pack? So just as an example, I'm going to come down here, I'm going to add a pack, and I'm going to add in an EWP floor, just to throw it out there. So I get my EWP floor, and what's inside of there? Well, it comes with 3 beams, a floor joist blocking, rim, and so on. So whenever I add a pack in, that would be true for an EWP floor, or if I instead was adding a drywall pack, each type of pack that you might add in here, so in this flyout, it's going to come with designated line items in here. Some of these line items you might want, some of them you might not want. Some of them, there might be other items that you would want to have in there when you automatically load a pack in. So to change those, you're going to come over to the Profile tab, come across the top to the Containers tab, and I'm going to come here to the center column. This list should look familiar. It's just that same list that we saw in that flyout menu when I went to add a pack. So here's my EWP floor, and I can click on it. Notice then here is I'm in my default applications, and I have listed here 3 beams, and basically saying I'm going to get 3 beam line items. I'm going to get 1 floor decking, 1 floor joist, 4 hanger line items, and 1 rim. All of the rest of these items that are here, I could always add them in, but they're not going to come in by default. So if you're saying, oh, well, hey, I really don't want 3 beams, I only want 1 beam to show up, then you could adjust those quantity and those counts. So if you come into your template and you come to any of these things, then you can change what gets added by default when you add that type of pack. That way it's actually useful to you, again, and then fitting that in the context of flowing through your material list, using measure commands, using link commands to be able to get to what you want. Second with that though is looking here, say at this first floor pack. In addition to the order the packs are in and what is contained within them, another question that you might say is like, oh, well, I want to be able to control what order these things are in. I want my beams lower up, I want my crawl space close to the top, but when I look at my mud sill, it's like I want my mud sill to actually be at the top of the list. I want it to be above everything because I call that first, or whatever your preference is. So can you control that? Yes. If you come back over to the Profile tab, come to the Containers, and so in this case, this was a first wall pack. This was as far as the type of pack, this was a main floor pack type. So I'm going to come over here. You can see that in the blue up top. So I'm going to come over to my main floor, and here are my applications. So this is what comes in by default, but you can come up here and change the application sort order. This will change how those applications are actually sorted. So if I want to find mud sill in this list, probably come down here, and let's see, and this is obviously, this list is in alphabetical because it's in order. Okay, so there it is right there, mud sill. If I want to drag this up and I say I want this just to really be above everything, I just want it on the top of the list all the time. So I can drag it up to the top here to the mud sill. If I come back now to my project tab, you can see now mud sill shows up at the top of the list within that first floor pack. So again, you can organize your material list both with names, with the applications you like to have in here, get rid of the ones you don't want to have. You can order them in the way that you would like to have. That way you can easily progress from a top to the bottom flow through your project, and allow it to serve as a guide and a checklist for you as you move through it. A couple other things that can help as far as with pack renames, and even managing a project, whether you're trying to do this in the template file or just as you're in a job, you can right click, and instead of choosing rename pack, you also have the option to rename house packs. That's referring to the house list here. So rename house packs, and you get a new list here that you can actually just come through this quickly and make changes, make updates, just to all of them rather than having to come to them individually. So that's if you weren't aware of that feature, you can do that. We're possibly considering some changes and updates even to this feature to expand that and give you some more controls for that. So be on the watch out for some changes there coming down the road. But now, so then the question of, all right, so what happens if maybe you're in a type of project where you need to add additional lists? So not uncommon for you to have to add in, an exterior building or an additional house or, a different building. Can you have that list? So you can do that either by copying a list, or you can come up here to the top and choose add list. If I choose add list, what's going to come in with that? So let's come over here to the profile tab, back to containers. Here is where you can control that. Here it says default packs for a new list. So whenever I add a new list, I can have what, these packs are going to be loaded in for me. So I can choose to get rid of some, add another. So I could say, well, I want to have an EWP floor and I want to move that in right here. And maybe I want to drag that to the top. And I want to rename that even. So I'm going to call this my basement pack. So now whenever I add a new list, I'm going to get that, and that EWP floor is going to be renamed as basement pack. Same thing can be done with these main floor, main walls, upper floors, or upper walls. You can have more than one main floor or main wall, and upper floor and upper wall. So you can add these multiple times. So if, for example, if you wanted to have a third floor in, and so it made sense to have like an upper floor and an upper wall, sort of the upper part of the building, and then those could be renamed as third floor and third wall. That way, as you add a list to your job, it's coming in. So then if you just kind of think through this, then these types of packs will get added, and what drives what comes in these packs? Well, that's going to be based on what you've set over here for each of these pack types. So even though we only have like a main floor and a main wall, we don't really have a basement pack. So it may work for you to just, have another main floor and rename it as basement pack. Or, maybe in your case, you want your basement pack to be ordered differently as far as how the application sort order is. So you could, in a sense, pirate a different one of these packs that you don't use for something else, like EWP floor. You could make that, and you could customize EWP floor by the order of applications that really fits your basement pack approach. And then that way you could have a more basement flow type of a pack, and then you would have a main floor pack that's more geared toward that style. So one other thing I'll just show you back over here then is when it relates to the application sort order is, we were in here before and we moved mud cell to the top to order how these applications are going to sort on the list. In addition to that, you can also add what applications are actually available in that type of pack. So all these over here currently, like barge, board, or band, since those are more exterior or roof type things, they're not available in the EWP floor pack right now. I could add them in, you could hit the arrow, bring it over, and you could sort them into the place. So if you want those to be available, and when I say available, what that means is if I come over here to back to the list and I come to EWP floor and I choose add application, previously band wouldn't have been available. Now it is, since I just added it in. But this is what's going to drive this list of applications that you actually have available to use within the context of that pack. And the idea of limiting that is, if you're in a window pack, it's like, well, I don't want to be offered, rebar as I'm in my window pack. So, it's trying to hone that down. That way, what you're seeing when you go into add applications, it's a reasonable list of items. Final thing I'll mention here, and this is a little bit reaching out to some of the other features we've talked about in the past, but the concept of report in pack. So the fact that I can come over here to my roof pack. So here's an example of a kit, for example, that is a roof decking and it's driving also my roof underlayment and roof shingles, and it's reporting into the roofing pack. If you want to solidify that those are going to report into roofing correctly, one way to do that is through use of pack tags. So I'm going to come to pack report tags right here. Right now, there aren't any on this. I could choose to either create a new one or add roofing to my roofing pack. So what that means is it's going to be tagged as roofing underneath. So if I look at pack report tags now, roofing is tagged that way. So what that means is I have now the flexibility to actually rename this pack. Instead of it being called roofing, I could call it, lower roofing. If I had a lower roofing and upper roofing pack, it would be tagged that way. It would still going to contain the pack, or it still has that tag on it of roofing. So that way, as these items like in roof, these roof underlayment and roof shingles, it knows to go into that roofing pack happens to be named lower roofing, but it's going to go into that roofing pack. So the idea of being able to tag something while it's still above it has kind of a different name. That concept of pack tags you can do here, obviously, in what you set up in your template file in your list that already exists, but also over here in the profile tab in containers, when it comes to what shows up by default, You might say, oh, yeah, I want a roofing pack, but I want to rename it as something else, but I want it to have that roofing tag on it. You can actually do that by right clicking on it here, come to pack report tags, and you can come and find, here's roofing, so that as that pack gets added, it will get the tag of roofing on it. Even though you may have named it as, lower roofing or upper roofing, or, or however it is that you want it to be tagged, but it will allow your kits to keep working the way that you would expect. So that's kind of the quick summary there for today. Encourage you can still put some answers into the Q&A section, but I think the big takeaway that I just wanted to get in front of you as you think about how to improve your takeoffs is take a look at your template file, look at how your material list is built here and how it's set up for you, so that it really assists you in the process of flowing through your job. Oh, you know what? And one final thing that I will mention that I should have mentioned earlier, as when it comes to this information over here of application sort order. So this is very convenient for lots of reasons, but you should be aware that since reports, as you order these different applications, that's going to drive how they show up here in this list. For your itemized list reports, itemized lists are driven off of whatever the order that is here in the material list. So just be aware that as you change things, like in the basement pack or the EWP pack or whatever you're doing, whatever order the applications show here will also be the order that the applications show on your material list, which may be good news for some of you as well, because maybe you want to have your itemized material list show up in a slightly different way than what we have been. But just keep that in mind, that if you change it for one, for this view, you're also changing it for the reports as well. Anyways, so yeah, thanks for taking the time to hop on today. And one more spring webinar series then a couple weeks from now. So we'll look forward to having you back for that one. Have a good afternoon, guys. Thanks.